Hi everyone, it's Stefania here from Rise Above Your Limits. I work as an empowerment coach, and my biggest passion, my biggest expertise is to work with my clients on a path of self-discovery. It's my passion to bring out in them their authenticity, their authentic voice. Once they can find that internal sparkle, it's the exact moment where everything becomes possible in their lives. This video's title, I found it quite intriguing myself, and the title is exactly this one: Ask yourself the right question. And you may wonder at this stage, at the beginning of this video, what kind of question am I referring to? So we all know that life in itself would throw at us any kind of possible life experience. Sometimes we're able to cope well in our life experiences, and in order to understand that, you would also realize that when this happens, you basically obtain in life the exact outcomes that you desire. So despite a problem, despite a challenge is in front of you, you manage to develop and create and devise a strategy in order not only to overcome a problem, but also to get out of life what you mostly desire, cherish, and love. So the problem is when problems, challenges, and obstacles are much, much more than the enjoyable and pleasurable experiences that you wish to have and enjoy and experience in your life. So this video is for me to empower you to shift your perspective, to find a practical and effective way to realize what's going wrong. Whenever in life you are absolutely in front of an obstacle, a big challenge, you don't know what to do, and you find out that the strategies that you are devising are not actually getting you anywhere. So let me start by describing what is the most natural human reaction in front of any possible problems. So the first reaction that we tend to have is to have this kind of reactive response towards reality whenever there is a problem. And in order to really, really understand and embrace the meaning of these kind of behavior, we need also to embrace and understand the power of the emotions that are actually driving our behaviors under those circumstances. What do I mean right here, right now? Well, in front of the problem, you feel that is a problem, right? There is a person, you had an argument, and now you are angry at them. Is that right? So automatically you feel this anger in your body, and chances are that you're gonna make yourself be heard loud and clear because you're angry and possibly that person disrespected you or said something that didn't feel right. So by acting on the drive of those specific emotion, on that specific emotion, which is anger, you basically are sending outside in your reality a specific behavior that is linked to that anger. Anger has been exactly the drive for that behavior, okay? And you also realize that when the anger is gone, you actually allow yourself to have more clarity, more wisdom, a more peaceful way of thinking and elaborating around the situation. You tend to have a broader view about what needs to be done and what maybe is not the best possible strategy. So in order for you to change your behavior and being less reactive in certain and specific circumstances, it's so important for you to understand the power of negative emotions. They are not just a nuisance or an enemy, something to be avoided, neglected, or something you really want to get rid of. Negative emotions are elements of your story that surface and sometimes get triggered under specific circumstances. So unless you understand the why those emotions get triggered specifically under those circumstances, otherwise, if you don't do that, what would happen is that these emotions are going to rule your behaviors until the end of time, possibly. So when we are under negative emotions, you already understood that you are somehow a victim of certain biological and physiological processes in your body. Your mind cannot think clearly. Your body is in a deep, intense state of stress, of course, according to the intensity of the emotion that you're feeling. And all of a sudden, there's no space for a peaceful resolution or a peaceful reflection upon what's happening. You're just driven to act immediately, sending that text message, saying those words to that person, or simply making a choice in a moment where your ability to think is not enhanced at 100%. So negative emotions send your brain and your body into a state of tremendous alertness. It's like having red flags in our environment and literally design and set in our body the tendency to fight back, flight, so removing yourself from the situation, running away, or simply being petrified. So it's clear now that I'm talking to you that once we can at least recognize that our body is fueled with the stress, with the cortisol, the negative emotions bring up in our body experience, the only options we have to react on the outside is through a specific set of behaviors that are exactly these ones. You fight back, you remove yourself from the situation, or you simply get petrified. From that level of energy, and don't forget that emotions are exactly energy in motion in your body. So under that state, if you have to run away from a situation, if you need to fight back, if you end up being petrified, you already realize that whatever is happening on the outside, there is a narrative that you are responding to with that specific emotion that, by the way, can be anger if you had an argument, can be anxiety. If, for example, at work, there is a set of circumstances where you feel you cannot make it, or can be fear of anything that you find threatening in your external environment. So you are already understanding or coming to terms that whenever we respond to the power of these negative emotions, we also support a type of narrative around our presence into this world. It's not about power. If I need to run away, if I need to protect myself, or if I need to fight back, that means I'm in protective mode. That means I need to protect myself. And if I need to protect myself, automatically I am diminishing my power of agency upon my life. Whatever it's happening on the outside, my perception of my internal power is so diminished that I actually need to protect myself. I'm not powerful enough to make it. I need to arise in my body all the chemicals in order to find what I think in that moment is the best strategy. But I believe if you look back in your life, you would also realize that under the effect of stress, as I have already mentioned, normally you don't get the outcome that you expect to obtain. Maybe it's a temporary solution, but chances are that the same problem is going to repeat itself in your life. And you would be to square one unless you decide to understand what is the narrative, what is the kind of story that you project onto the world every single time you decide to react to anger, to fear, or to anxiety. From that place, there is a specific mentality that you send out, sometimes almost subconsciously. You send out that you are powerless, that you are hopeless, that you are helpless, that there's nothing you can do in that situation apart from that, three types of behavior that I've already mentioned: fight, flight, or completely get petrified in the situation. So this is what in psychological terms we define as the victim mentality. So you may find that if that is your relationship with your problems in your life, I agree with you. It feels like there's nothing you can do. It feels like whenever there is a problem and you react on the impulse of those negative emotions that are in your body, it feels that there's nothing you can do. I was myself in this kind of loop when I felt my anger in my early 20s. Anger would come, I would respond always on the same line. I would pick the fight back option out of the three options available. And trust me, the outcome would be always the same. I would damage my relationships. People would get annoyed. I would feel guilty afterwards. And that would feel like a tremendous vicious cycle where I felt I didn't have the freedom. Anger was controlling me. Anger was ruling me. And that was unpleasant. I didn't know how to access a different power that could help me manage the anger and also access the wisdom and the clarity to help me understand and see what was the best possible set of actions to actually pursue the outcome that I really wanted to see in my life. Don't forget that the impulse is right. What you feel that there's something wrong in your reality, it's the right impulse. What is not always the best option is to react with that impulse and immediately do something on the outside. So when I discovered emotional freedom techniques in my life, in my personal therapy, before I became an empowerment coach, emotional freedom techniques tapping was like a profound game changer in my life, because it allowed me to find a space for my anger, a space where I could understand, evaluate, and be powerful enough to let the anger be available in my body without feeling the need, the impulse of doing something. So paradoxically, I could be peaceful and tranquil by experiencing the anger in the body and also trying to understand what was happening in the inside that was actually a part of my story. So when I was in anger, just to bring you a practical example so that you can follow me through this reasoning in a very deep way, in a very deep manner. When I was in anger, I would always feel the need to be heard. So I had to raise my voice so that others could hear me, so that my needs could be matched. So there was a deep belief inside me that I wasn't good enough, that people wouldn't listen to me, that I wasn't that powerful. So anger was the extra layer of armor, of power that I had, that I needed in my life in order to be heard, in order to be seen. So once I could really evaluate the anger from the other side, rather than following its impulse, but actually revisiting the anger from the inside of myself as part of my inner story, as part of my identity, the discovery that this was my internal narrative, that nobody would listen to me, I need to raise my voice. That meant I'm not strong enough as I am to be part of this world, right? That there were very many negative beliefs associated with my story, with my presence into this world. And for sure, I thought I was the victim. Under the anger effects, I would blame somebody else, anybody else in my life, as responsible for the way I felt. Not realizing that every time a specific problem would trigger my anger, I then ended up understanding that that wasn't the problem itself that triggered the anger. And please follow me here. It was my personal interpretation of who I was in that specific situation that get triggered. So it wasn't just that that person used wrong words that made me angry and made me feel that they didn't respect it. That person simply highlighted a pattern in my life where I already felt that people wouldn't listen to me, where I already felt not visible, not being heard, not be listened to. So I had constantly to scream and shout to make my needs be met, be recognized, be acknowledged. So that was my version of, that was my identity. So when I realized that the problem wasn't really the problem, the real problem was the vision I had about myself that was coming through as powerless, as hopeless, as helpless, every single time the anger or any other, set of negative emotions would come to the surface. And once I had the chance to really step into those kind of emotions, and as I mentioned to you, emotional freedom techniques was life transforming for me. It really enabled me to break free from the victim mentality, feeling that my kind of destiny was a sum of triggers for my anger, for my anxiety, for my fear. And finally, I could step into the creator stance. Finally, I could access inside myself the power, not only to manage the anger, but also to reframe those broken pieces of my identity that I was unconsciously projecting on the outside. So I then realized that as humans, we embrace patterns. We adopt very habitual patterns of behaviors, emotions that we feel, and beliefs and thoughts that we have in our brain. And these three elements are tremendously entangled and intertwined in our human experience. So that means that for every behavior, there is an emotion, and for every emotion, there is an internal set of beliefs that gets played over and over again. And that ends up defining our story, our identity, even if it's not a functional one, even if this identity is not promoting the achievement of our dreams, of our goals and our desires. So in order for you to understand if you are more into the victim mode or into the victim mentality, or you're actually able to experience life more out from that creator stance, is for you to understand if in your life you experience more problems, or you actually use problems as challenges, as opportunities to really challenge yourself, uncover parts of yourself that maybe are not completely supporting your final destination. And you use the triggers as simply, as a learning opportunities to really empower yourself to become better, to become the more expanded and empowered version of who you are, in order then to achieve whatever you cherish the most in your life. And being in the victim mentality is not wrong, it's human, right? If we, have been run after by a savory tiger, we don't want to step into the creator stance. We want to run, we need to save our life. But once we are victims of those emotions repeatedly in our everyday life, without realizing drop by drop, it's like we end up embracing really corrosive patterns of behaviors where we diminish our strength, we diminish our power of agency upon our life. And when somehow we see people around us that maybe are successful, they are free to express themselves, we start feeling jealousy. We start to feel like there's something wrong with us. That signal, that pain that you feel in your heart when you see somebody else being happy, where you actually struggle with not being happy, is simply an emotional signal in your body that your authenticity is so trapped in your negative emotion that you cannot express your truth. You cannot express who you truly are. It doesn't mean that you don't have your authenticity. It doesn't mean that your chances to be happy and successful in life are gone. What it basically means is simply that you need to find a way, you need to find your strategies, your techniques. In my case, emotional freedom techniques helped So by combining traditional life coaching with emotional freedom techniques and empowerment, coaching and this empowerment coaching approach, I slowly came out on the other side, stopping being a victim of my negative emotions and actually stepping into the creator stance, where I could finally look at my story and just taking responsibility for whatever wasn't working in my life. So what I was saying just right before this part is like, it's not that your chances to be happy are gone, and whatever age you are right now, you lost that opportunity forever. It simply means that you need to make that shift. You need to recognize and acknowledge and honor and accept that you are in the victim mentality. If the triggers in your environment create a set of responses that are habitual and they don't promote the outcome or that you want to see in your life, that means that there are parts of yourself that are somehow sabotaging your desires or the destination where you want to be right here, right now in your life. So I really hope that this video can shed some light onto your patterns of behaving, of thinking, of feeling. And as usual, if anybody feels like having a chat with me to find out more about my story, to find out more about what is emotional freedom techniques, also known as tapping, is, please, you will find under this video all my contacts. Again, it's Stefania here from Rise Above Your Limits. You find me on Facebook and Instagram, and also on YouTube in here. So I really hope to, hear from you. But if not, I promise you will keep on hearing from me with more videos coming through. Thank you so much for listening today. I send you my love, a big hug, and I will speak to you soon. Bye. Thank you.